Hello, and welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, powered by Angeles Investors. I'm your host, David Olivencia, co-founder of Angeles Investors, and a passionate advocate for leveraging innovation and technology to drive success. Let's get started. This is Exponential Growth. All right, everyone. Well, hey, welcome to another edition of the Exponential Growth Podcast. I'm the host, Dave Olivencia. This podcast is powered by Angeles. And today we have an amazing guest, a dear friend for almost 2 decades. And when you think about exponential growth, whether it's been his career at Cisco Systems, which touch a lot of exponential growth areas, whether it's network bandwidth, Internet of Things, the tech explosion that we've had, they've been a central part of it. And Guillermo was kind of had the driver's seat as a chief information officer there, and then has done a lot of board work, driving exponential change and transformative times, and is now CEO of Conectado, where he's looking at another set of disruptive technologies and leveraging them to educate our youth in technologies that are taking on exponential growth so they can be well positioned for jobs of the future. So with that, Guillermo, honored to have you with us today. Welcome. And how are you doing today, Guillermo?
I'm good. I'm good. You forgot to mention that I'm a member and a LP in Argeles, which is,
That's
a
right. That's
really
right.
really important part of the exponential growth and looking at things that we haven't even looked at before, right? So
That's right. That's
yeah,
right. No, and investing in exponential ways too,
that's
right? So
right.
you're looking at, and even before Angeles, right? Even early
Yeah,
stage investor, and we can talk more about some
yeah,
of the interesting investments that you had as well. But really looking at things in an exponential way. And this podcast is about looking at exponential growth to help us be, what are the right technologies and how are they
yeah,
impacting us? How do we best invest for that? And how do we best lead, right? How do you best lead? And I think you've got an amazing background history. So we look forward to jumping into this. So,
yeah,
gee, I know a bit about your story,
yeah.
but those who are listening may not. So please share with us. Go from the beginning.
Yeah.
Share your story.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on for days, but I'll kind of frame it, and you and I have talked about this sort of frame that I have around my G compass, right? Call it the compass, which is really around kind of the north, if you think about a compass, there's north, south, north, east, south, west, and then, for me, the north has always been around the purpose, right? And I didn't know about this my purpose growing up, but what I did know is I always loved where I was from. The North is really about Pueblo, right? I grew up, was born and raised in Pueblo, Colorado, of immigrant parents. My dad was from Mexico City. My mom was born in immigrant camps in southern Colorado. Her family came from Mexico. So really a very a deep-rooted Mexican Hispanic culture in Pueblo, and so that's really always been foundational, familial. That's the North Star, and growing up there was really huge. We talk about exponential, right? My family. So this is funny. My mom has 21 siblings. So when we think about networks, my grandfather created the human network, right? So, so you
Straight
always
out.
had to watch around, who you talk to, what you said, or you ask, what's your last name, because it may, you got to be careful there. But growing up there, I was 17, when I graduated high school, and we didn't, have a lot of money to go to school, so ended up in the U.S. Navy, which was the site was I'm gonna get the college degree, but how I got there was about, there was a scholarship or there was money to go to school if you went into the military, and just so happened that I went to the Navy and ended up in telecommunications technology, So I was 17 working on networks, or well, 18, 19 years old. Um, and so just really starting to look at, you even look at the name of our company today, Conectado, or the Hispanic group that we ran at Cisco, Conexión, was all about connection. Um, and so learning that and having those skills, doing some college while I was in the Navy, but getting out and ended up in this place called Silicon Valley. That's where my last post was in the Navy. And having those skills in the tech place at the right time was,
Right.
I mean, there was, a lot of hard work, but also, ended up there was the serendipitous moment where I was in
Right.
the
Yeah,
in that
right place,
place,
right
right?
time, right? You have
Yeah,
the tech boom is just
yeah.
starting. You just happen to have those skills, be there, be in Silicon Valley, and the story gets better. So continue, G.
Well, that's the east, right? So I think about the compass. I was rising and learning, and that's the east, where you wake up every day and you go, okay, how do I learn? And that's the learning mode where the east is the sun rises in the east, so you start rising in the east, and then growing my career in Silicon Valley, and ultimately, working for companies like Silicon Graphics, which was really like the NVIDIA meets Apple meets, you know, Pixar all together in one company. And I was at the forefront of that with immersive technologies right from the beginning. And then getting recruited to go to Cisco, where started as a senior manager there, and then just kind of grew my way up and ended up building that platform. So that's your south, right? And the south is the platform that you're using to keep your purpose going. But that south was really, I mean, it was game changing for me, for my life, for my family.
Yeah.
Because, you know, no one, no one in my family has ever done anything like that. And so,
And you're
you know, be,
rising up, you're rising up the
rising
career,
up,
but
yeah.
Cisco's booming too, right?
Yeah,
Both of them,
Cisco's growing as the
Cisco,
same time. Like there was like a, at one point it was like a 89-degree angle, and then the dot com. So you had to kind of learn your way back up to a 45-degree angle, because that that dot com boom really taught a lot of lessons. And then it's like, how do you scale an organization? How do you build it? So I'm going to use this, every $5 billion was a new company, right?
yeah,
And those 5 billion came pretty fast at Cisco, right? So when I started, it was, I don't know, less than a billion. And when I left there in 2020, it was a $60 billion company, right?
amazing.
And
And you
so,
got to see the leader. I mean, and you became a part of the leadership team, chief information officer.
yeah,
So you got to be a part of that hyper growth and see a little bit of the bust through and kind of continue to ride that. What were some of the key learnings, maybe two or three key learnings that through this hyper growth phase, being, I think at the time they were a Fortune 20 type company, right?
yeah,
And then being at the top, right? I mean, working your way up to the, chief information
yeah.
officer at a global, whatever, 20 company, just two or three quick learnings that you'd share.
Well, I think when we were doing that 89-degree angle, it was about um, you were managing to keep up with the technology. And, at those moments, especially if you're in tech, and there was nobody that looked like me. So, but you also had to like the Cisco and the tech street cred was really important, right? So you
Yeah,
not just had to like work hard, but you had to like know your stuff. And because, especially if you're in IT at the IT or a tech company, you were tested all the time. Everyone in the company is a CIO. There's 70,000 CIOs, right? Or
the
they
tech company.
think they're CIOs. And so you have to kind of not just guide your team, but you also have to show that to the company. So you're managing to you're just managing to keep up with the growth. And when the
Yeah.
dot-com boom happened, if you remember, then it was like, oh shoot, now we really have to look at the organization. How are we going to, you know, manage to keep our people? How are we going to manage our people? How are we going to manage, like a real business? Because we didn't have to. I mean, at that time, orders were just coming in. It was like, and then it was like, oh shoot, we need to really look like a business and manage like a manager and a leader. So it was a lot of learnings and how to inspire, recruit, I mean, the inspiration was just like the stock price was going up.
Right.
We split so many times, but then it was like, now I need to inspire the people. Now I need to make sure that the people feel like they want to come every day. And those were really, key lessons for me. I'm a people guy anyway, but just being now it's like, okay, how do I keep moving the ball forward? How do I inspire the team? How do I inspire the company? And that's ultimately how it ended up, being asked to become the chief information officer. By the way, I didn't um, interview for this job. I didn't interview for the chief information job in a real formal interview. I interviewed all the way through my journey. So there were positions that I was getting placed in or raised my hand to go in, and that was the interview process. I did every job in technology in the IT organization. And so when it came time to look for the next chief information officer, it was like, why we can go through the process, but this guy's already done everything. Everybody in the organization has his back, and if we don't if we don't promote him, we might have a revolt. So it was interesting times. Yeah.
Well, and you inspired everybody too, right?
Yeah.
So no,
Hmm.
it's an amazing story, G, and very admirable, very, very admirable. And so, in your 30-year-ish, right, industry expertise career, you've seen a lot of technology disruption. You've had to manage, lead, implement, sell, work with other companies to get it in there. And every year I always look out and, I know what's coming, the next 5, 10, 20 years. This is bit why we have this exponential growth podcast. And every year for the last 30 years, I always look out in the future and say, man, it's just amazing what's going to be happening. And I see it, I know what's happening. When where you're at now and everything you've seen, when you look out 5, 10, 20 years, like what are the 2 to 3 kind of big transformative, exponential growth type technologies that you see out there that people should get their heads around and become more familiar with it because it is going to impact the way they live, work, play,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. Well, and I think if I kind of like even look back at my background coming from Silicon Graphics, where they were really around high-end computing and immersive experiences and it's really about experience. But if you think about how all these, you can't go a day or an hour without seeing two letters, A and I, right? Artificial intelligence or generative AI. So, you asked about two or three technologies, but I actually think the 5 year, and I don't even think it's 5 years. I think it's like everything now is the time frame has shrunk down so fast. The acceleration of technology has happened like it's never happened before. That generative AI adoption curve is almost a 90-degree angle. And so I would say it in one phrase. I would say it's secure spatial AI. And why I say secure is it has to be safe. It has to be secure. We think about cyber, if you're in any boardroom, which, that's my West. If you're in any boardroom now, you're talking about you're definitely talking about cyber. You're definitely talking about risk. You're talking about that in your audit committees. So cyber, secure, and then how you manage it safely, even if you think about ethical AI, that all falls under secure for me.
Mhm.
And you think about spatial is, that network effect. It's like everywhere and it's immersive. So, and if you really want to make an impact, I want to see something. You look at things like what Elon Musk is doing or like Jensen Huang is doing. I mean, every time you see Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, who's the CEO there, if you haven't seen one of his keynote speeches, you have to go see it because everything he shows is an immersive experience or an example or a video of of artificial intelligence at work. And so it's not just like, hey, we're doing a text chat or it's like, no, I'm like, you know, I don't know. You and I may not even really be talking. We might just be like, you know, and there might be a script in the background and we're just like, here, who knows? We might bust out French or Espanol
That's right.
or German, right? At any moment. But but now I can see it. I can connect with it and I can do that anywhere, anytime, and via any device. And
Mhm.
and to me, that's spatial. And then AI is the foundation, right? AI is the data is like that's really the world is already there. Um, and I think having literacy around AI is so important, especially for our community, the Latino community. There's never been a moment like there is now for us, I call it the light speed moment, for us to leapfrog our skills, to upskill, reskill, and to get those opportunities. Everyone's on the same playing field here, and it's up to us to actually go get them. So secure, spatial, immersive, experiential, anywhere. AI, foundational, artificial intelligence, cultural intelligence, human intelligence coming together. So that's what I would say. Secure spatial AI.
Got it. So as any and those who are listening in this podcast, right? Like Guillermo said, these are, and I 110% agree. These are technologies that are growing not like linear, right?
Mm-mm.
Exponential, right? So it will impact your career, your boards, the way you live, work, and play, and the best position yourself. There's a learning side of it, right? But there's also just getting familiar with. Guillermo just talked about like checking out videos from the CEO of NVIDIA, right? Do it. Get out there, check them out, learn.
Look at it. Or
So
join or get join our AI literacy boot camp.
there you
So
go. Well, and that
Conectado, we're doing cohorts right now with several school districts. These schools are going, we need literacy. In fact, one of the schools, uh, the LA Community College system, starting with LA Trade Tech, we're starting a boot camp next week with their educators. The
okay.
educators are going, hey, our students are using it, but we just do not understand it. We don't know about it. We're scared about it.
Sure.
And it's like, there you go. If you don't do it, someone else will do it,
Well,
right?
and the thing is that these are no, so where there's growth, there's opportunity and there's jobs, right? And there's many jobs. And to your point, you can, by learning these skills, you can leapfrog. And there's no excuse because it now that it is the price for education is dropping, the vehicles that you can do it are dropping, right? And this kind of is we can go kind of go deeper into what you're doing with Conectado, right? So here you are, extremely successful executive, senior executive at one of the world's largest technology companies, and really, from a history perspective, one of the tops. And then you say, hey, I've done it, been very successful. I'm also on some corporate board, but I'm going to be a little bit entrepreneurial. It's a whole set of similar muscles, but used in a different way, right? As you've launched Conectado. So walk us through a bit of why Conectado, what it is, and how is it positioning itself in this area where things are growing at 90-degree
Yeah.
exponential growth.
Hmm.
Got you got students out there that need to be prepared, the partners that you're doing, and how you're going out with it to win and succeed
Yeah.
in this. So share
Yeah.
share.
No, and I think it really goes back to this compass, and it starts with the why. It's like I remember what it felt like to be and when I say the only one, it's like that was the only one. There was nobody. It's not, I would tell you how old I am, but it's like that back in the day, there was nobody. And now it's like I knew how that felt. Especially growing up in tech and now tech is about everything, about AI is about across every industry. And so, having that success and then going to go, well, how am I gonna, what is gonna really help the community is for me I could be in another role, David. I could be in another
I know.
corporate role, or I could just be in Hawaii or whatever I want to do. And it's like, but, there's if you just look at our community, we talk about 63 million Latinos in the US. And then
Yeah.
you say 20, of that, if you look at the Hispanic serving institutions, which is about, there's 600 of them in the US and another 400 emerging Hispanic serving institutions that educate about 5 million, 5 million Latino students. And it's like there's 5 million that that I think we need to go help understand this because in every industry, the Latino the Latino representation is less than 5%. Any industry that's going to create generational wealth, it seems like, well, we're less than 5%. And if you look at women, it's like less than 3% in these
Yeah.
industries. So how do we go, that's it's almost back to the purpose. I know
Right.
what it felt like. I come from where we come from, and it's like, I feel like it's time to leverage all that compass that I've built to go, how do we go and bring up those millions? Not just like, talk about exponential. We're not talking about hundreds. We're not talking about
Yeah. Not
thousands.
onesie twosie. Not
We're
onesie
talking
twosies. Right.
about
Hey, millions.
M's and tens of M's, right? And that's, I think, the only way I believe that we're going to be able to reach and scale and drive the exponential growth is using technology, connecting with technology, being that connector, connecting from the classroom to career, to growth, to the boardroom. That was my journey. So that's why we said is how do we drive that connected tissue or conectado, right?
Yeah.
And how do we enable that for our communities and I think that's the why in all of this, right?
So how I know you've done some amazing things already and you have more planned. Anything you want to share? What's like now the how specifically? How are you doing this, executing the steps you're taking to hit those millions? What are the great things you've done and what are the great things you see moving forward?
Yeah. So over the last 18-24 months, we've built out a platform, a secure spatial AI platform, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's all, it's, continuous work, right?
Right.
But we've now partnered with various school districts at a high school level. We've partnered with various community colleges and universities, like, even Stanford came to us to want to partner with us. So that was our first partner, Stanford University. So when Stanford comes, you kind of listen. But we have
Yeah.
Berkeley, we have UC Merced, we have, Illinois Institute of Technology, and so a number of of partners there. And we've been working on that connected tissue. And now we're going, okay, now let's start bringing these things together into these. into these regional hubs that end up, you know, you're working in the platform. The platform's spatial, so it's metaverse. And and we're holding boot camps, right? Right now, as I said earlier, we're hosting a boot camp on AI literacy. Everything from, it's like, what was Chat GPT? It's like, well, no, it's more than that. It's everything
Right.
from the foundation of what is artificial intelligence? What is machine learning? How do you
Yeah.
do prompt engineering? What are the kinds of, when you think about, the tokens that are being built, and those are the kinds of things we build up to, but you walk out with really hands-on experience of how does AI work? And then, like these educators, they're like, is it just Chat GPT? It's like, no, it's more than that. And when you interact with your students, you also need to be able to speak the language. You also need to, so let's make sure that you're on the same playing field as your students, because some of them are way
Oh,
advanced,
yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
they're turning, some of these educators are going, they're turning in work, and that, it's not their work, but I can't refute that because I don't understand how to go and look at the, what did they really turn in? And now we're saying, imagine, you're not trying to go say, you cheated or whatever, but what you want to do is help them understand how to use their brains as well
Right.
as Chat GPT
That's right.
and
Or you ask them
develop,
interesting
yeah,
questions that are
yeah,
different, or you know, you make them speak about what they've learned and share, right? Because it's here. Anybody can write anything, right? So yeah.
yeah. And the learning is really about every one of us are learners. It's not just about a student in the traditional sense.
Right.
Traditional, here's the other thing, traditional education is now being disrupted. And that's,
Yes.
and for us, what we're not doing is we're not going out and going, we're going to eliminate universities, or we're going to eliminate community colleges. We're going, we want to partner with you. We want to connect with you so that it's the power of the and. We want them to have their degree, and we want them to have the skills-based approach where they can go and get these jobs. Because if
Amen.
you
And
have a,
high paying jobs, right? These are at the
if
highest paying jobs.
yeah, if you have a degree, where we see a lot of students who go, I have a degree, but I can't go, I can't seem to close that job. And then you start going, well, not only is it the technical skills, but it's also, do you have understanding of this world where we're going? Do you have the confidence? Do you have the courage? Do you have the communication skills? Do you have the
Yeah.
connections? And do you have the community around you? Those are the C's of Conectado that we also embed into the boot camps. It's not just about, hey, here's the AI and here's the bioinformatics. We also surround that with the C's that I just
Yeah.
mentioned, right?
Those C's are important because it's well-rounded, because it's a kind of a well-rounded approach. And so for those who are listening, right, keep your eyes on Conectado. If you're a student, connect with Conectado, right? If you're a corporate, hey, connect, because these are going to be the jobs. They're producing some great jobs out there. And if you're a university, right, I think you also want to be connected to Conectado and what G is doing. So G, we talked about early in the podcast, talked about, okay, so hey, you got secure spatial AI, or artificial intelligence. You've got wisdom in seeing various technology trends. When the other part of this podcast is, in this world of exponential growth, how do you best invest, and what do you look at, and maybe if you can share a little bit about how because you've done some early stage investing in some very interesting companies early on. You've you've been an owner in Cisco, maybe you still are, and other equities, right? And then now you're in a place where, okay, hey, I see all these exponential change going on. What do I take these investing learnings that I've had? what am I thinking about now and what I should be investing in and diversification and share your kind of thoughts and to our audience on that. How's
Yeah,
the best position to invest in this environment?
yeah, and I tell my, I'm also trying to also coach my kids on these kinds of things too. And I think when I was in my late 20s, I remember one of the one of my this my boss at the time, a CIO, left the company, and this was at a company just before Silicon Graphics. By that time, I had moved to Silicon Graphics, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I really, you need to look at some of this technology that we're doing, that we're rolling out." And I was like, "Well, I got my hands full. Gee, you really need to look at this." And I'm telling you this not from just, "Hey, I want Silicon Graphics to buy this technology." I'm telling you this because this is an what's called an equity opportunity for you. And I didn't, I was like,
You said equity. What does that mean?
what's that mean? And it's like, so you have your salary, right? If you do things right, equity is going to be the game changer for you. So, so I want Silicon Graphics to look at this technology, and it was called DSL. It was a networking technology that ultimately we ended up all using at our houses to get connection to the internet.
Oh yeah.
And so, I ended up putting, I was like, I didn't have a lot of money at the time, so I took out some money out. I trusted him, and I put 50K into this company. Um, that ended up getting sold to Pacific Bell and to and ultimately to AT&T to do their DSL technology. And let's just say I not only put a down payment on a house, but also paid off all my cars with that equity. And it was like I just made a heck of a lot more money with that than I did in the last 3 years of my salary, right? And so I started thinking about this, there's something there. And then I got early stage into some other companies. And, there was this one company, coming up, and it was around social media and I again not knowing what that was. But again, I put some money into that. And and then this company went IPO and it was called Facebook, right? And and so let's just say I still have a lot of that. I have gotten, I've sold off half of it, but I still
I
have
was
about
doing well,
half
and
of
it's
it.
still doing well. It's still
And
kind
it's
of growing. I
still,
mean, it had a
and
good,
that
good,
was in
good start.
2006, 7, right? But those are the things early on that I learned about being an angel investor. Um, because I didn't really do that through any organization. I did that through my just my own y- just kind of it was risk. Um, and so that those were some of the early ones, and then obviously I learned that and started was as I was getting promoted in my companies. It was like, yeah, I was when you start negotiating and going, hey, gee, here's your next promotion. I'm like, hey, how about a little bit more stock,
More
more
equity.
equity, right? More equity. That's the game changer for everyone on this call. The game changer, if you can get more equity in a company that's growing, and for me at Cisco, that was not just it was life changing, right? And let's just say I don't have to work anymore if I don't want to. Um but that is the key is like is and looking at some of this like what we're doing here with Angeles. The cool thing about Angeles is now I actually have a community of folks that may have done this before like you is like
Before you were
okay,
kind of doing it
right,
yourself, right? You're
before
like,
I was doing it myself and now it's like we didn't have an Angeles investment group back then. um now we do, So now I think it's really a good opportunity for folks to, and there was a couple that I've already, some that grew up and were interns at Cisco, and now they're, well into their careers, that are, now becoming members of Angeles, and they're like starting to dip their toe into this, and they're, if this goes well, this will be a game changer for you, right? And the cool
Yeah.
thing is that um, now we're leaning on others that have been there before, and that are open to sharing their knowledge. And that's the cool thing about what's going on here. But that's sort of like been my progression. But equity, um, that's a game changer. It's if you can get into a station, make sure that you're really looking at equity. I'm also an advisor for many, I'm on the boards, but I'm also advisor for many startups. And, it's like, the equity is really important
Yeah.
to have.
Yeah. And then as you look now in the future, right? So what or how are you looking to invest over the next 5, 10 years? Are you looking to go, more startups? What areas are you looking at for startups? Are you looking maybe more funds, venture funds? Are you looking to say, hey, I've done all that, I'm reducing my risk, I'm going into, more stable things? Just how are you looking at the next 5, 10 years in a world of exponential growth, right?
Right. So I think, what I've done so far is I look at the sort of the blend of my portfolio. And I'm very have a yeah I have a lot in really hard assets, like I have a home in San Diego, I have a home in Hawaii, and both of those homes have increased in value. And so even and sometimes I'm even able to leverage some of that equity
Yeah.
in those to go, hey, there's an opportunity. Um, yeah, yeah, I have a large, I have a lot of stocks and, mutual funds, and bonds. And so that's a good part of my portfolio. Um, and I still have my Facebook, my Apple, so I have the horses there that I kind of keep intact. Um, and yeah, and I haven't sold them yet because it's like there's so much growth there that you have to look at taxes and things. And when you live in California, that's another issue. But then you go, okay, what are these? How do I take a risk? So I'm an LP in Angeles. I'm an LP in another fund called Brainstorm. An LP in one of the 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 spin-offs from Cisco called Decibel, um, which looks at enterprise
Work in
tech.
tech. Yeah.
So I have some a risk, part of the pie is risk management there, and just going, hey, I have enough over here that I can go take those risks. And so um the next couple of years I think is like, okay, letting kind of settling in. I have my Conectado platform that we're building, so I'm also an entrepreneur, so I've taken a risk
Growing
there,
that
right?
growing that piece,
Growing
that's an
that
asset.
as
You got to
well,
grow that.
right?
Yeah.
So so I have a good, three-quarters of that in good solid assets, and my quarter of my portfolio, I go, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to do this, and hopefully one of those things hits, then I make another three-quarters of the pie again, right?
There you
Because
go.
I mean the ones that I think I've invested in and we've invested in are really I think could be game changers.
You got it. Oh no, thanks for that insight, G. It's always fascinating to kind of hear those perspectives and those who are listening, right, learn, right? Because like you and I, G, right, this wasn't conversations we had over the dinner table. and learn from our parents, right? We're kind of learning it as we go.
No,
So
yeah, and I learned that like just kind of like, luckily there were people out there that go, you have to think about this. You have to look at this. And by the way, they didn't look like us. They weren't Hispanic, Latino, but because of I think you know just being inclusive and being connected, you make these connections with the whole world. I mean, I led companies or led organizations around the world. I have people from Europe, I have people from Asia, I have people from India, people from that always go, "Hey, gee, I need some advice," or "I need to, remember when we did this?" And this is like the exponential leadership, the
yeah,
growth, and I think we really need to make sure that we as Latinos are also making sure that we connect outside, that we pull in and and we push out our people, and like,
yeah,
in high tech we say push up and pull up, and that's so true. It's like we have to do that, right?
yeah, and then also inclusive, connect in and connect out, right? So do
Yeah,
both of those. Um, well, gee, so what's next? What's next for you? I mean, you got Conectado, drive that. Well, what do you say? What's next for you?
yeah. Um, I think it's so I obviously have my the investment hat, right? So I'm an investor. I'm a um, board member. So I have Blue Shield, I have Jack in the Box, I have other boards, nonprofit boards. I have to look at kind of how many I'm on. And then I have some other advisory, boards that I do for startups that leverage my compass. And then I have, I'm an entrepreneur. So I think what's next um, is connecting even these things that I'm doing. I'm an investor. So do I, where do I invest? Do I invest in another startup, or do we go, hey, Secure Spatial AI, you know, I'm I'm doing my own investment. I'm doing some bootstrapping, and I'm now going to be looking for others to be part of that. Um, so I think it's just kind of continually learning and how we use secure spatial AI across all of those as my investment hat, in my board hat, and in my entrepreneur hat. S- Using exponential growth, exponential methods, which is around technology, and using secure spatial AI to do that.
Ah, that's excellent. Geez, so many nuggets of wisdom, insight for those who, kind of understanding your career and your background, but also kind of in this world of exponential growth, taking that, your learnings, your wisdom, and really how they can take that, apply, and take some actionable steps. So, gee, thank you for taking the time and sharing those perspectives. Where and how can people get connected with you on social and otherwise?
Yeah, so look, I probably use LinkedIn more than anything for my business activities. So look me up on LinkedIn. Um, at GG Diaz JR is my handle um on X or Twitter, on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. All those you have to kind of like limit how many you you have there, but 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 I think for this audience, really LinkedIn, and go to conectado.com and join our newsletter. You'll see what secure spatial AI looks like if you go to conectado.com.
Excellent. Well, Guillermo G. Diaz, thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, perspective on this Exponential Growth podcast. Look forward to many, many more great times and seeing you continue to succeed in this world of exponential growth. So thank you, G.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.